Hey guys, welcome back to Lap 1 News, and today we have some major news to report on today. Sebastian Vettel, ex-Red Bull driver, ex-Toro Rosso driver, soon to be ex-Ferrari driver. He will be leaving Ferrari at the end of the 2020 season. That is major. Sebastian Vettel, he's been such a big talent. I mean, he's a 4-time world champion. As much as you might say, yeah, that's because he had the best car, you still have to have talent. I mean, A, to get into Formula 1, B, to win a race, C, to win 4 championships. It was really incredible. And to be potentially losing that off the grid completely, but even just to be losing that from Ferrari is going to be a big shock to everybody. It's going to be a big shock. And I mean, he will be missed. But I do think recently, in the last couple years, he is not what he was when he was winning those championships. I mean, he had the opportunity, arguably, to fight for the championship with Mercedes in 2017, 2018, and he fell short. He made too many mistakes. The team made too many mistakes, because obviously you can't blame everything on Vettel. The team made a lot of bad errors as well in that instance. So there's that. But I do think, yet again, we've seen a younger talent coming into a team and beating Sebastian Vettel, and that causing him to leave soon after. We saw it with Ricciardo at Red Bull in 2014, and now we're seeing it this year as well. I mean, I don't think it's purely because of Charles. I think he's realised, I mean, I'm just putting words in his mouth now, he's not said this. I think he thinks that it's not worth putting himself at risk and his family at risk, going all around the world racing when there's this virus about, which makes me think that perhaps he's going to retire. I mean, certainly the way he spoke suggested more retirement, spending time away from racing, than it did with staying in Formula 1. So I think that's probably the most likely for him, in my opinion. If he were to stay in F1, I don't know fully where he would go. Alfa Romeo with Kimi is a choice, but then I think Kimi could well retire at the end of this season anyway. So it would be Vettel replacing Kimi, sort of thing. People saying Renault perhaps, and McLaren. That would go well with the links of a swap deal between Ferrari and McLaren, or Ferrari and Renault, for either Ricciardo or Sainz. But at the same time, why would Vettel leave Ferrari to go to a worse team on the grid? I don't see that's happening. He says it's not about money. If it's not about money, I don't know why else you would go to McLaren or Renault, because at the moment they are not proving themselves to be up there with the quickest. And as much as I would like to see them up there with the quickest, I don't see that happening in the near future. Maybe in a couple of years, but I don't think Vettel will want to trundle around in the midfield for a year just to hope that McLaren or Renault can find the pace with the new regs after the new regs. So, yeah, as I say, I think retirement is the most likely option for Vettel. But who are Ferrari now going to get in to replace Vettel? As I said, there's a lot of rumours about Ricciardo from Renault or Sainz from McLaren, but I don't see that happening. Ricciardo, he had his chance. He did prove himself in a top competitive car, but in the end, I think he kind of left Red Bull to stop being that number 2 driver, which he was going to become if he stayed with Verstappen. Verstappen was going to be the number 1, and Ricciardo was going to be the number 2. That much was clear. That had been made obvious. And I think, well, Charles Leclerc, Ferrari are obviously going to rely or prefer Charles Leclerc over Ricciardo. So I think that's going to be the same situation, and I don't think Ricciardo will go for that just because he left Red Bull for a reason, and he'd be joining Ferrari for the reason he left Red Bull. It doesn't make any sense to me. McLaren, Sainz, again, I don't majorly see that happening. He is no longer with the Red Bull program, so there's that going for him. And undoubtedly he's proved himself this year as a quick driver. But I think what you have to be careful of is not overestimating Sainz. He had an amazing season last season, and he was able to keep up with Verstappen at Toro Rosso. But is he cut out for a top team? We just don't know. He's not proven himself yet. I mean, I would love him to get the chance to prove himself, but personally I don't see it when I think there are other options that Ferrari would prefer. Because why would you go for somebody who's comfortable at the team they're already at McLaren, over somebody from your own program like Giovinazzi? And that leads me on to who I think will actually replace Vettel at Ferrari. I think it will be Giovinazzi. He's already in that Ferrari program. He had a rocky start to 2019, but he did improve. And I think that if he can continue that upward trajectory this season and have a really solid year, beating Kimi, I think he'll get the promotion. Because I don't mean to disrespect Giovinazzi, but I think he would happily play number 2 to Leclerc, at least for a few seasons whilst he's just finding his feet with the team. I think he would be happy to play the number 2 driver that Ferrari want him to play, so Leclerc can be number 1 fighting for the championships. So in my opinion, that makes the most sense. And then to replace Giovinazzi at Alpha, I would suggest either Mick Schumacher, Robert Schwartzman, or Marcus Armstrong. I would say most likely Mick Schumacher, because he just has that bit more experience, and obviously there's the fairy tale name of his father, who his father is. So I think that would be their preferred option. But if in this year in F2 Mick doesn't perform to how we would expect him to, how Ferrari want him to, or Robert Schwartzman or Marcus Armstrong really shine, like I think they can, especially Marcus Armstrong. He's in a very solid team in F2 this year, and he was beaten by Robert Schwartzman last season, but at the same time Robert Schwartzman is at Prema this year alongside Mick Schumacher, and Prema aren't as good. They're a good team in F2, but they're not as good as your likes of ART, Carlin, Dams, So I think out of those two, Marcus Armstrong has the better team, and so is more likely to do better than Schwartzman, but obviously we just don't know, the season's not started yet. So yeah, whoever has the best season out of those three, or most likely Mick anyway, I think, that's who I think will replace Giovinazzi at Alfa, and Giovinazzi will replace Vettel at Ferrari. And as for the rest of the grid, I don't see it changing that much for next year. I think Vettel leaving was the big one, and if it does go the way I expect it to, which is how I've said, then I don't think there's going to be as much of a shake-up as there would be if Ferrari do take the likes of a Ricciardo or a Sainz, you know? So, yeah, that's been my thoughts, and the big breaking news that's come from today in this video. So, thank you guys very much for watching. This has been John Whittaker from Lap 1 News, and I'm out. See you next time.